Alright, so in the previous video we talked about modeling the roofs. I think the next thing we want to talk about today is stairs. So if we look at our building, we want to figure out where our stairs are in our building. And it looks like, based on the sections, they're right against that wall. And so let's find that location. So we have about 4 feet 8 to the top of our stairs, it looks like. And let's go back. So we have 4 feet 8 on that side and 4 feet 8 on that side. So let's go up to our second floor and let's start there and let's actually model that hole. So I don't want to go there. I want to go to SketchUp. And we're going to hide our roof. And we can hide our entry roof that we just made. And it looks like we've got to add one of our components from our roof to our entry porch there, and that'll all remove. We can turn off our ceiling. We can turn off our second floor walls, and this is left with our actual floor here. And so we want to start off by actually editing this floor because we got to build a hole into this floor. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to offset a line here are 5.5 inches because that's our stud size. And let's put this line all the way across here. And that did not go very well. Put that line across there. Because I know that wall, we don't want to cut out that wall area. We want that wall to still be there. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go across here. And our magic number was 4 feet 8. And so 4 feet 8 is about this. So let's just put a line here, so we know where that is. And when we look at our second floor, let's go down here. It looks like this whole second floor is actually open. So it looks like the ceiling is open above these stairs here, so we have no floor in that location. So let's actually bring this over 5.5 inches as well. Oh, make sure my line's in the right spot, 5.5. Let's put another line here. So that's our other kind of side of our opening for our stair. And let's look at how wide our stairs are. So it looks like we are 4'5" at the center of our column. And it looks like, based on this, we're from the inside of our stud, we're 4'1.5" to our other side of our stud. So let's go to there. So let's go to 4 feet 1, or sorry, actually I'm doing that in the wrong direction. Let's do here. 4 feet 1.5 inches. And let's bring this all the way down to here so it intersects. And then we can remove this hole. So let's just extrude this down. And you can see how it says on face, so that means it's going to remove. And then let's just clean up these lines and get rid of these lines that we don't need anymore. Like so. And so that's our kind of hole for our stairs there. So let's close this group. And we theoretically have something else going down into our basement area, but we're going to just ignore that for a second. But what we can do is we can hide this and actually see where our stairs are going to start. And so just to kind of give you some idea of where this hole is, we could just drop these lines down temporarily. And that'll give us an idea of where our staircase is going to be. Not something you necessarily need to do, but by creating that line, it kind of helps us keep that stair aligned. And so with this stair, we want to figure out how far we're starting in. So let's go down here to our floor below. And it looks like we have 4 feet 8 to our double joist above. That's interesting. Yeah, so we've got 4 feet 8 to that area. And so with that 4 feet 8, roughly, we want to start our stairs around there. So let's go in 4 feet 8. somewhere around here. And that's kind of our starting point for our stairs. We again want to start in our 5.5 inches, so let's just bring this down like that. And so that kind of gives us some points of where we're starting. And just to make my life easier later, I'm actually going to group all these random lines I have so that I can delete them. So let's just group these, make group. And that's just going to make my life a lot easier because I don't have to worry about touching them. And I'm actually going to lock them. And locking them is just going to make sure I don't delete them when I'm trying to erase lines in the stairs. And so the one aspect that we kind of talk about in the slides is actually doing this stair via components. And so I talked a little bit about doing it with just the triangle of the stairs and kind of creating all those steps. So let's do it this way. So we have 9 foot 9 and 7/8. That's a wonderful number. And so that's our height of our stairs there. It's almost 9 foot 10. And with stairs, theoretically, the code states that we can't have more than a 1/4 inch difference from step height from top to bottom. And so you could say that 1/8 is negligible, meaning it's something that we could ignore. But we don't want to really plan for that, to be honest with you. So let's go 9 7/8. And I'm actually going to use AI here because I think AI is actually a great way to figure out stuff like this. And so let's go over to here, and you can use ChatGPT or Grok. I'm going to use Grok. I don't know if it's going to ask me to sign in. No, that's great. So we have floor height of 9 feet 9 and 7/8 of an inch. And we want to have stair riser height of roughly 7 inches. And maybe let's actually just check that on our drawings here and see if our drawings actually give a riser height. It does actually. So we have 7.5 inch riser height, and then we have 11 inch treads. So let's use that. So it's probably that's really code. So let's go 7.5 inch riser height and 11 inch run length. Can you provide the actual height of the risers if there was 14 steps? And I think this is a real great tool when it comes to actually using AI for productive purposes. And so this is actually giving us a lot of math. And this says we need to get closer to 15. We're actually closer to 15 inch risers if we need to get to that, which is actually really interesting because that's not what the drawings say. And so this is actually something we see quite often. So we could say, would this meet code in Ontario? So it exceeds the code in Ontario. So if we go to 16 risers, we have 7.37 inches of riser height. So, pretty cool. Within a couple seconds here, I actually didn't do any math. It is a little early for math, but I didn't have to do any math, and I was able to figure this out. So So we want 16 risers at 11.37. And what we could do here, let's actually look at this table. Did it give us max riser height? Yeah, so let's go to 7.37, and let's go back to our SketchUp here. And so let's go here. Let's draw a line up our 7.37, and let's go over our 11. And so we could also ask it, just because I know this may be an issue, is how many runs we have. If this says 14, we may not have enough. And so what we could also do is we could ask it, what is the max, or what is the minimum run length? And so with this, our 10 inches is the minimum run length. And so instead of going to maybe 11.5, maybe we shrink this by ½ inch. So we'll go to 10.5 inches for a run. So let's go to SketchUp here. And let's go to 10.5 inches. And so we have this piece here, we can extrude it across. And so this is kind of the idea we talk about in the slides. So we can make this a component now, and we can call this stair tread. And so now that we have this a component, we can copy this up. So let's go to Move, and let's grab our point here. And we're going to hit, as you can see at the bottom here, it says Alt and Control. So let's hit Control, and Control gives us copy. And I think Control gives us copy, and Alt, Control. And we'll just copy this all the way up. And we'll see where we get to here. I'm just going to change my view a little bit here. And eventually we're going to get to the top here. And so we actually got there with a little bit less, so that actually wasn't too bad. So we probably could go to 11. So that's going to obviously change our math a little bit there, but that seemed to work out. So probably what's happening is it's not necessarily counting that top stair. So if we're 15 risers, we're kind of including that top piece as a riser. So anyways, we got our steps kind of coming up there now. And the one thing I actually do like about this is stairs actually take up a lot of space. And I think from doing all this math, we have our steps here. And what we could ultimately do, we can make all these steps into a group. And we can also move this step this way so that we're ending a lot farther into our step. And really what we're doing is we're providing more space at the bottom of the stairs. So if that's our front door, we're actually giving us a little bit more room in our front door, which I think is nice. And so that's kind of our steps there. One of the cool things about doing this method is we actually have the ability to edit these components. And so let's just say, for example, you really like these steps, but you want to make this component a little bit different. Maybe we want to have an angled kind of step here. So we could go 1 inch in, and we could bring this up on a bit of an angle, and I can extrude this in. Oh, I'm editing, sorry, I'm editing the, group but not the component. So let's edit the component. And so let's bring this over 1 inch. Bring this up like that, and let's extrude this all the way through. The one thing you're going to see on our back end, we just got to make this step a little bit longer. And so we have something like that going on. And to make this look really accurate, what we could do is we can offset this in, let's offset this in 1 inch. And let's bring this down here. Find our pink line there. Find this line. And let's erase these 2 other lines. So this is kind of a more modern step, obviously. And this could be made a bit more traditional. And then let's just extrude this past a little bit so it's something like that. So kind of a cool little step situation there. We could close this. Yes, we're still in our group. We could make this unique. And what we could do, definition stair tread. Stair tread 1. So we could modify this stair tread a little bit, and then just replace those other elements. So, so the kind of cool thing about components, let's just copy. Actually, you know, I'm gonna do it this way. I'm gonna go back. I just want to make sure. Okay, so this is not duplicated. So you see how it says stair tread there, not stair tread 1. So if you want to try different stair treads, what I could do is I could just copy this stair tread over to the side here. And what I'll do is I'll actually make this one over to the side unique. And I'm gonna change this one. And so instead of having this angled tread, maybe we want something a little bit more traditional. So what we can do is come straight up with our riser. And we can come up to the underside of that. And let's bring this one straight up. Bring that straight across. And let's erase this middle line. And maybe we want our riser to come out like this. And something like that. And we want to make, again, this more traditional. And what we could do on this end part is we could add a bit of a curvature. Okay, let's do that. I think we want to go. So you're going to go back in. So this is 1 inch, so let's go back in 1/2 inch. So 0.5 inches. Let's go from here down to here, like that. And let's erase these lines here. And let's erase these lines. Since we're kind of starting over with our step there, I think that kind of makes sense. And then let's just extrude this over to the edge there. We can go over to this side to make sure we're getting our endpoint here. And so there's a more traditional stair. So you can see how the component thing is super useful because you can repeat elements. And then because I made this component over here unique, it will actually save in our outliner. So the outliner is under Windows. I think it's under Windows. where did I get? Oh, under, I think, manage trays. Oh, default trays, outliner. And so the outliner will show you all your groups and all your components within your file. And so that's kind of useful. So let's close that. So we can actually delete this stair, and it'll show up still in our outliner. So if we go back to Window, Default Tray, Outliner, it'll still show up in, actually no, it doesn't show up. It's not in our group anymore. We could move it over to the side, but I'm just going to leave it deleted. So anyways, there's a stair. That's how to start modeling stairs and doing different pieces. At the top here, we actually could make this top part unique. And just from the purpose of cutting back this last part here, because we don't need this stair to go all the way to the edge. And let's just hide our floor for a second here. Looks like the end of this is not closed in. And so we can bring this step all the way over to our end part there. And what we can do with that is we can actually make our top of our stairs bigger, or we just make the bottom of our stairs bigger. So you have the option to do that. But at our top, we can just bring it in like that. So our top stringer kind of ends like there. So that's kind of stairs and how to work with different ways of using stairs. And then now that we have this, we can delete our group. And it's locked, so let's unlock it. Unlock, and then we can delete that group just because we don't need those lines anymore, but that gets us our stair. And another thing we could do is model our stringers underneath, our structure underneath, but I think for the purposes right now, I think this is fine. Something that you could certainly do on your own if you like.